If you look at a single band compressor, it's a processor that helps you control the dynamics of the overall dynamics and transients of a piece of audio. But what's special about a multiband compressor is that it allows you to split the frequency range up into bands so that you can apply different compression settings to each band. So you isolate the frequency areas and then reduce or enhance these bands. So what you're doing is splitting the bands into frequency ranges. Plus, you have compression settings on each. This gives you the power to control the dynamics and tonal quality of the sound. I must say that this is one of the trickiest processes to get right, so it does take some time figuring out how this mastering processor works. But let's dive deep into this effect and let me show you how it ticks, so that you can use it to produce better masters of your songs. Let's add an instance of a multiband compressor next. In my DAW, I go down to Dynamics and I use the multipressor. So that's this guy over here. As you can see, it has 4 bands, and each of these have their own compression settings. If I drag these vertical lines here, I can change the range or crossover band of each one. Now, if you want to solo each band, you can click this to solo that band to hear just this in isolation. So let me demonstrate this. I'm just going to play back. And if I solo this, that's going to be just this band over here. So that's the low band. Then this is the low mid, the high mid, and then the high band. So the trick here is to isolate each band to an area that you want to work on. So let me go through each band and show you how I'd work through it. On this band here, I want to sort of isolate the sort of lower instruments like the kick and bass here. So let me just solo this. So if I pull this in a bit, I think that's sitting pretty good over there. Now if I go to the low mid, this I want to focus in on the sort of vocals and guitars. I think I can stretch this out a bit more. Maybe to somewhere here. Then the higher band, this will feature more of the vocals. And I can sort of maybe push this out a bit higher to include more of those vocals. And then this will be the higher sort of airy instruments like the crashes and cymbals of the drums. Now with the band set, let's go through the compression settings on each one. I'll start off with the low band. On this band, I want it to work quite hard to tame those dynamics in the low register instruments, giving them some more solid and controlled bass registers. So let's solo this and play back. So this has a ratio of 2.5:1, and I think that's working pretty good. Now I can bring down the threshold and see how this is starting to add some compression to this low band. And that's giving some gain reduction to that band, so I can increase this for some makeup gain. That's working pretty well to tame those dynamics. I could also tweak the attack and release times, but I'm going to leave these set. They're pretty good for mastering purposes. So you want a slightly longer attack time with shorter release times. Now on the second band, I think I can use a slightly less ratio of 2:1, and let me pull down the threshold to get some compression going there, and then add some makeup gain. And then onto this next band. And let's just go back somewhere in the song. So for the third band, I only need a slight compression happening here. Maybe I'm going to put 1:5. And I'm going to pull this threshold down. And maybe a slight bit of makeup gain. That's just a slight gain boost. And then for the fourth band, I actually don't want any compression happening. But I do want to give it a slight bit of a gain boost just to introduce some more air. So there's no compression happening, but there is a gain boost. So here it is before the multiband compression. Slightly a bit flat. And then that just giving some bit of compression to it and just changing the tonal quality slightly on that audio. So that's working well. So as you can see, the key to multiband compression is finding these crossover points. And then you can simply use the same techniques that you learned with compression to apply what type of compression settings you want for each band. Now, I probably know the most difficult task of this is going to be finding the right crossover bands or crossover ranges for your multiband compression. So I just want to give you a quick demo of the Ozone application and a super intelligent feature that it has. So I'm going to bypass this and I'm going to add an instance of Ozone. And I want to add the dynamics, which is the multiband compressor. So you've got the same thing here. You've got your 4 bands, but it's got this super clever feature here if I click Learn. So I'm going to play back the audio. And then if I click this Learn feature, it's going to listen to the audio and calculate where those crossover points need to be. How cool is that? So that will just help lessen the learning curve on the multiband compression unit and help you find those crossover bands. And you can still go in and edit those if you want to tweak them slightly. You don't have to use what they've given you as the crossover points. You can go in and tweak these if needed. So that's just an example of a really good multiband compression unit that you might want to look into. Now that you've successfully compressed multiple bands of your frequency range, let's take a look at the next step.